Burnie Thompson Show.
Well, welcome to join the party.
He's America's voice of freedom.
There's that Thompson, he's always bad-mouthing us. Well, then stop putting the government above the people.
We don't need you.
Listen up, fools. When I'm talking to you, I'm not just flapping my lips for exercise. I got something to say.
I don't watch this stuff on TV because I don't want to see it.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You think I want to fight with these guys?
One of these days. Pow! Right in the head.
Now, Burnie Thompson.
You're going to the moon.
How many of you recognize this guy? This is the boss of the city. This is Tony O'Rourke, our new city manager for Panama City Beach, and he has had his hands full ever since he got here. And with the coronavirus and COVID-19, I wanted you to hear what the very latest policies were. And Mr. O'Rourke said he'll join us, so here he is. Thanks for being with us, Tony.
Pleasure to be here, and it's great to communicate to this public during these very unprecedented times with very uncharted waters. So we know there's a lot of anxiety and consternation, and anything we can provide clarity to, we're happy to.
And there's really no roadmap for this. I mean, you guys are focused on, and I went to the meeting today, and one of the things that you said is you want to make sure the main things keep working, and that was police, fire, and utilities. That's got to be priorities, because if any of those go down, the city's in trouble.
Absolutely. Those are core essential functions of any government, particularly local government. We want to make sure the public understands and has confidence that you will have public safety in both police and fire and utilities that will work for you every day, because that's our fundamental obligation to make sure that we're protecting the health, safety, and welfare of this community.
You know, and I think that the council has been committed to, and you all know I've been very critical of the council, but on this, we all want the same thing, from Councilman Solis to Mayor Mike Thomas. We all want the same thing, and we may have a few different ideas, and I really don't know, what's going to work. But I do know, Mr. O'Rourke, that this is something you've been studying. I mean, you've been looking at what worked in other countries. You've been looking at what works in other cities, in other states. Tell us a little bit, what is the most important thing when it comes to stopping or slowing the spread of the virus?
Probably the single most important thing you can do is just first personal hygiene. Using products that are going to keep your hands clean. Don't touch your face from a personal standpoint. From a social standpoint, providing distance. This disease has a tremendous capacity to be transmitted, highly infectious, and as we already know from other countries and from our current experience, it can be fatal. And we want to prevent that from happening on a widespread basis.
Well, I am a face toucher too. I mean, my sweetheart has been telling me, hey, don't touch your face. It's just a habit.
I know.
When you said 87 times a day, I do it more than that. I do it probably twice as often as that. So I'm working on that. But I want to point something out. When a few years back, I remember we had the scare of Ebola. And I was really worried that Ebola was going to spread really quickly. And I found out that part of the reason it didn't spread quickly is by the time you were infectious, you felt so bad you were down. Here, you don't feel bad, and you could be carrying, and that's one reason. And besides that, it's airborne. That's one reason it's so infectious.
Instead of being called COVID-19, it probably should be called covert-19, because for the vast majority of people that do get it, they don't have significant ill health results, especially younger people, and that's why it's so important to keep in touch with your temperature, not to be careful not to cough or to sneeze, and be aware that you could absolutely have it and not be aware of it, but be contaminating someone else, especially someone that's older and with underlying health issues. Extremely dangerous to transmit to them.
Let's talk about a few of the things that you guys have done, and these were some of the policies that you drafted. The council has said this is the direction that we're going. And by the way, I should point out that you're getting an unbelievable amount of calls to City Hall and asking questions and emails, and you're doing the best you can to answer all of those. And I think you're doing a fantastic job along with Debbie. But some of the things you've decided to do, and I'm happy about it, but I know you got to be getting some blowback, and that's keeping the city parks open. I love what you said. We want to have some normalcy. Let's get outside and move around. So that was a big deal.
These are clearly very emotional, stressful times, both because of the threat of the illness, but also the financial impacts that people are suffering. So it's a double whammy. So it puts tremendous emotional, physical stress on people. On one hand, we don't want people congregating in large groups like on the beaches, which is unfortunate. But on the other hand, there needs to be some outlet that's safe where people don't congregate, like jogging, cycling, swimming in a pool that's full of chlorine, which is a huge bath of disinfectant, going to a park with your family, but again, not in a large congregation, going to Conservation Park where we have 24 miles of trails. You can spread out and not be in a situation where you don't have inadequate social distancing. So it doesn't mean we have to close everything, but we have to be careful not to attract people in large congregations.
Well, I'm so concerned about the economic impact, because what that really means, it doesn't just mean that the rich guys are going to take a hit. It means our quality of life is going to take a hit, and it's not like we can close down for 14 days and then reset and everybody's right back to normal. And one of the comments that I made on my show the other night is, wait till everybody realizes that the essential businesses count on the so-called non-essential businesses to survive. And you made that point today when it came to City Hall, because we've made some changes there, right? I mean, it's now closed for face-to-face contact, but you're still in business.
Oh yeah, we're absolutely in business. We want to make that loud and clear. We're still providing all our services, but again, to reduce the threat of transmission within the City Hall and with our employees are being checked every morning for their temperatures. If they're running a fever, they'll go home. If they believe they're sick before they even show up, they'll stay at home. These are precautions you have to take. We won't allow public access into our buildings for fear of, just takes one person to transmit this to dozens of people, and we can't afford, again, our police department and our fire department and utilities department in particular to be adversely impacted by this. Many people are estimating, starting with FEMA, that this could result in about a 30% absenteeism rate, not just for the city, but businesses, period. That's why the strong push on social distancing, mitigating personal and public interactions. And so that's one step we have to take. The other is identifying our essential employees, particularly for police, fire, and utilities. Doesn't mean the rest of our employees aren't essential, but they have to serve in a support role. I'll give you an example. This past weekend, we were using up to 46 of our personnel to patrol and monitor our beaches for the closure. So we didn't have a problem like we had during spring break, where you're trying to keep people apart, but there they are, and the optics are horrible and counter to what we're trying to achieve as a nation and as a community: social distancing, prevent the spread of this disease. So we were very, very cognizant of that. So we had a huge presence on the beach 24 hours a day over the last 3 days. We can't afford to have, in this case, we had 18 police officers as part of that. I can't afford to tie up 18 police officers just patrolling our beaches. So we'll have our other employees step up. They did this weekend: code enforcement, streets, parks, even the people we're hiring for the beach safety program or lifeguards. They will take on that responsibility. If they run into anyone, and fortunately this weekend we had very good contact with a few public members that were at the beach. They understood the situation and abided, but if we do, then we can call the police in. But police need to have a higher priority during these times than just patrolling the beach. We have other people that can do that. And again, we thank the public for working with us and cooperating with us on that particular matter.
People are getting better, aren't they, about self-governing? I mean, I've got the elbow bump down now, you know, and I'm aware of things that I normally didn't pay a whole lot of attention to. But one of the other things that you said today is, Tony, you're the pointy end of the spear on this. I mean, you're the one that's crafting policy and along with the council members. But you've said, look, we've got to have redundancy here, right? If Tony O'Rourke, the city manager, goes down, somebody's got to be able to just seamlessly step in like that, right? And that goes not only for you, but for each person in a leadership role.
We want to identify at least 2 people, if not 3. I'm lucky I have a twin brother, so he can step in. No one will know the difference. But yeah, everyone will have a designee to step up, be that alternative, because people, unfortunately, either will get sick, or more often the case, they'll get exposed and they'll have to self-quarantine. You've seen that with members of Congress. You're seeing that with other people in the community. So we're not immune to it. We're going to be infected just like everyone else, but we have to have people willing to step up, and continue to provide these vital services to the public.
Who would be? I don't believe there's an assistant city manager
No.
right now, but who would be somebody? Would it be maybe Holly White, somebody who has some experience to step
Going
in?
over that with the staff, Holly White, the chief of police, the fire
Gotcha.
chief, and then they in turn, they have to have their people identified for succession. So it's kind of a ripple effect down through the organization.
The city council meetings are going to be a lot different.
Very different.
This was, I think, the last one
Public
where I'll
one
be sitting in there. We'll be
for
doing
maybe a
it.
while.
Yeah,
Maybe a while. We'll
So-
go virtual.
that's going to be interesting. Tell us what that will look like and how people can participate.
Pretty much like this show right
Yeah.
here, where we'll participate through teleconferencing. It's almost like a Facebook or a Zoom type. If anyone's been on those platforms to do conferences, there'll be a methodology. We'll be promoting this on our website where people can call in. They can certainly watch the meetings, but they can still participate. We're probably going to have Debbie here take the questions. Now, we're not going to read the council like 100 or 200 questions.
Right.
We'll get probably that many. Is aggregate them under common subjects and concerns and let the council directly respond to the public so it feels like an interactive meeting. It's not just a one-dimensional meeting where
Yeah.
the council and the staff are talking, but it's a dialogue still with the community.
And even the city council members. I mean, they can either be there or not be there.
Yeah, the governor has suspended the Florida statutes which require elected officials to physically be present in
Right.
order to vote, again, because of the threat of this coronavirus spread. So we clearly will have members that will choose to be safer in their homes or in some other locations. And it's almost good. I mean, any type of natural emergency, you don't want everyone in the same location.
Yeah.
So it's actually good that we'll have some people separated from the physical city council room.
One of the one of the keys on a situation like this is because things change so quickly, right? And I didn't look at the numbers today, but I believe are we over 1,000 of infections in Florida? It's probably close to that at this point, right?
Yeah,
So it's growing, and we don't know really what it is because the numbers are limited to the amount of test
Testing.
kits that we have. So
Yeah.
that could be good news, or that could be not good news. And what I mean by that, and now this is, I don't know all about the virus. You don't know all about the virus. None of us know all about the virus, but it's possible that it could get worse or it could get better. And here's what I mean. We know now, Tony, if you die in Florida, the doctors will know if it was related to coronavirus. So we will know how many people are dying of it.
Sure.
But we don't know how many people have been affected by it and are going on their daily lives and recovering very quickly and developing antibodies, which would be a good thing, right?
Exactly.
So I suspect, and this is just in the realm of conjecture at this point, I suspect that if the numbers go up, the people who are infected and have been recovered, if that rises, and the death rate doesn't, then the mortality rate itself, we get a more accurate number of that. And it could be much, much lower than 1%, hopefully.
I think looking at the data globally, they're now suggesting, originally they were projecting 2% of the people that had the disease would die, unfortunately. I think that's been lowered to about 1% because now they've tested more people, so the numerator and denominator are different, so that's a good sign. But it's still about 10 times more than the typical flu season.
Yeah.
Typically it's 1/10 to 1%. So we're talking 1%. It may not sound like a lot, but that's a lot of people.
If the mortality rate of everybody who gets it is 1%, it's going to be shockingly devastating, right? But again, if we only know the people who are being tested right now are the people who look the sickest, right?
Yes.
So our sample is of the sickest people, right? So if the sample becomes larger, maybe we can get some good news on the mortality rate, and we won't have those figures that we're all dreading, right?
Yeah, as you mentioned, for a significant number of people that get the illness, they're asymptomatic, which means they're not showing symptoms, but still they're transmitting, which makes it even more dangerous. And so I think looking at the history and the empirical data of pandemics, we're still relatively flat before the curve goes up. Then it's a question of, do we get to bend that curve downwards and draw out the duration and severity of this matter, or is it just going to skyrocket, which is doing in Italy, doing in Spain, and hopefully we can prevent that from happening here.
So, and I don't know a lot about this, but we know China was able to get a hold of it with its
Yeah.
iron-fisted ways, you know.
Sure.
But South Korea seems to have gotten a hold of it in less iron-fisted ways,
Because
right?
what they did, which is a standard protocol for public health experts, is they tested and what we call traced. So they were able to test immediately a large percentage of their population, determine who they'd interacted with, trace those people, make them self-quarantine. As a result, they shut the disease down. They kind of went up to about 7,000 cases, and they haven't had a lot more since. They shut it down quickly and effectively. Singapore did the same thing. Could we have done a better job? Yes,
Yeah.
but we got to deal with the situation that's in front of us now.
Yeah.
We'll have plenty of time to look back and analyze what went well, what didn't go well. But right now, more testing is imperative to trace the potential transmission points of this disease because it's so infectious.
Now, and Tony, we all know that government can only do so much, right? I think the real success or failure of handling this outbreak is going to be how do we self-govern, and how do we continue to have goods and services that we all need. As I like to say, we're either going to deal with the outbreak with incomes and resources or not. And we've got some restaurants that, of course, the dining rooms are closed, but they're doing a spectacular job providing food for people who drive through or order out. And that's something we should really encourage, right?
Absolutely, promote, and we're going to take up with the council. They gave us direction today to look at our food truck ordinance and liberalize it so that we can particularly allow existing brick and mortar restaurants in this city to be able to deliver food through either food truck or it could be out of their car because we know they've already met the basic standards of hygiene. They have commercial kitchens, they have refrigerated systems, they know how to prep food and deliver food. So we strongly want to facilitate that, and the council will immediately take this up on Thursday. And if there's other ideas people have out there about how we can facilitate the standing up of existing businesses and help along during this incredibly difficult, tumultuous time, we're all ears.
So one of the big challenges we've had is it hit right when we had the spring breakers, right? And they weren't helping things, right? We all wanted them off the beach, and we all had questions about what was going to happen from there. But and boy, some of them were just so irresponsible. It's unbelievable. But let's set that aside.
Yeah.
Most of them are going to be gone in the next week or two.
Most
right?
of them are gone already.
Yeah, and so that's going to create a better atmosphere for us, right? To if we self-govern and we should really get a handle on this, stop the curve, right?
But I don't want to just blame it on spring breakers. Certainly that exacerbated the problem and probably triggered the beach closures, not just here, but statewide. It was a good preventative thing to do. But you look at scenes from California, people this weekend on the beaches, even though the state has declared a shelter-in-place order. Hawaii, that's my home state. Tons of people, both tourists and locals, at the beaches. Those beaches were shut down. People are adhering to the message, which is don't socially gather in groups. You can still enjoy these natural resources, like we said, the parks, the pool, Conservation Park, but gathering in groups, which people seem to have a problem with when they hit the beach, it is a social environment. That's what's really hurting the attempts to reduce this transmission. We've got to stop people from gathering in groups.
Yeah. You know, and obviously, I'm so worried about the people. You know, I'm so worried about the workers because many of us go paycheck to paycheck or less than paycheck to paycheck, and it doesn't take long before we're in big trouble. And the government also is in the same boat. You know, a lot of folks think, well, we'll bail them out, but if the people aren't creating goods and services to be taxed, you know, then the government's going to run out. And so I worry about that. And there were some numbers today that are not pleasant. And I saw Councilman McConnell grimace when we said the numbers, and because he and all of them know the severity of this. So with the lack of tourism being a major way we fund the revenue in Panama City Beach. If the tourism goes down, I remember, I think I got it right, the city anticipates a revenue loss that could be as high as $9 million by October if tourism falls 60%. Did I get that right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's
a pretty realistic estimate. That's not an exaggeration. We're anticipating between 40 and 60% shortfall of tourist revenue between now and October 1st, our next fiscal year.
Wow.
That in dollars, that's 5.6 million to 9.1. We've identified, thanks to Holly White, her staff, and all the city employees coming together, identifying $8.2 million in operating and capital cuts we can make right now to shore up the ship financially, which we'll take to the council on Thursday to nail down. But we are definitely interdependent with the tourism industry. We are one of the few cities, not just in the state of Florida, in the country without an ad valorem tax.
Yeah.
If we'd like that to be a permanent state, which I think most people would,
for sure.
tourism is a necessity, and with this epidemic, we're going to have a significant drop-off of tourism, and therefore impacts to hotels, vacation rentals, restaurants, retail, all the way down the economic ladder. People will be affected, and so we're closely monitoring that, and this is just our initial estimate. Hopefully it's better, but it could be worse, and we're prepared to deal with that, but it's a reality.
Well, you know, I want to talk about the police. I think they do. I've always thought they do a really great job. I think that they're often overworked, overextended. I think they're underpaid, and I think that you've got a great police chief and the guys right underneath him. They're all military guys, right? And they all have that, and I am too, and they all have that discipline. Mm-hmm. But they all have the work cut out for them, and I think it's important to make sure that their morale stays up, because they're the ones out in the middle of people that we suspect might be carriers.
Sure.
And so talk a little bit about the police and the job they do, and how important it is to keep them infection-free and keeping them morale.
Well, both police and fire in particular, that's the core of what you are part of a city, is being ensured that you're going to be safe, that the public health, safety, and welfare is going to be maintained, and those are the two most important departments relative to that. Police and fire, we're very concerned about the point of contact they have. We're making sure they're being monitored daily with their temperatures, that they're taking personal precautions not to get infected, but it's inevitable.
Right.
One, if not more, will be, and we don't want that to happen, but we know the odds are strong that will happen, and all the more reason why we need to put them in a position where we can distance themselves, but they still have to do their job.
Yeah.
And so if people are conscientious now, don't call the police unless it's really a necessity, because we're going to have, I hate to say this, issues related to this epidemic, but the stress it's going to cause people. There's going to be domestic issues because of this. People are under enormous pressures and stress, financially, personally, their health, their families, and so the police are going to be on guard to address that. And again, let's make sure we're working to support what they're doing and minimizing the number of calls we have to generate.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about and I worry about is this great book behind you, The Law by Frederick Bastiat. That Bastiat taught us to not only look at what is obvious, right, and that's the patients, the coronavirus patients, and the people who are getting sick, and the people who need to get tested, you know, going to the hospital and creating some pressure there. But let's not forget all the people who are currently sick, all the people who have cancer treatment, all the people who have, you know, conditions where they need medical treatment right away. And I worry so much that if we have an influx, that these people might get put on the back burner, and I don't know how we're going to deal with that.
Well, that's the biggest concern for the health systems in this country, is that by and large, probably 80% of all the acute and ICU beds in this country are already spoken for. They have patients, like you just mentioned, that have cardiovascular issues, cancer, diabetes, you know, and a host of other serious maladies that require them to be hospitalized. And then we put on top of that this huge explosion of coronavirus cases. They simply don't have capacity, both in space, but also in medical personnel, doctors, nurses, technicians. So that's why you see the military stepping up right now to come in and supplement what they're doing. But again, the best thing we can do is don't get infected to add to that stress to that system, because we could be the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell would say, that causes it to crash.
Right.
And we don't want to be in a situation like Italy is, where they are having to make triage decisions. They're making calls right now as to who lives and who dies based upon the number of beds, ventilators, respirators we have, and we never want that to be the case. So again, the best thing we can do to prevent that from happening, try to maintain social distance. If you can stay at home as much as possible, we know that may be difficult and stressful, but that beats having the healthcare system collapse under the weight of this epidemic.
Well, I'm committed to doing all I can do to get the information, the factual information, the data information out as best I can to everybody that's part of this family and this audience. And it's a big deal to me. I'm very grateful that you took the time to come in and do the same, because I think this format allows for a little more of a longer conversation where we can do some analysis, we can answer some questions, and all of that stuff that maybe we don't have the time to do.
That's what we're here for, to educate and also try to tap down the consternation and the stress that it's only natural that the public is feeling. These are uncharted waters. These are extremely difficult times. I can't think anything in my lifetime close to this. Not the recession, not 9/11, not some of the wars being engaged in. This affects everybody throughout this great country, and so we want to be there on the front lines to support you and continue to deliver essential services, and would love to come back anytime, at any moment, to give you an update, because this is changing by the hour, by the day, by the week.
And let's remember that things, some of the, I don't remember who on the council had mentioned that things, we would like to get a hold of this and have things look a lot brighter in the summertime.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is not to say that things won't look better soon, right? Let's not
We
forget
hope
that,
so. I mean, that would be the best outcome here is, yes, we go through this over a period of 3 or 4 weeks and we shut it down like China did, and we're back in business. But what happens in the next couple of weeks will determine how high that curve goes up and whether we flatten it and drop it or it just keeps rising. So these are some very important times.
All right. Is there any way that we can help you other than you're welcome to talk to this audience at any time? And Debbie, if you've got anything that
feel free to contact the city. Follow our Facebook, our website, and again, invite us back so we can give the public more information and keep you up to speed. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it very much. And we'll have Mr. O'Rourke back just as soon as we have more information and we can talk it through, because again, I like the idea of exploring it, analyzing it, and getting context. I'll see you tonight.